Welcome back to the Junkyard Dawgcast. Everybody, I'm Jake Rowe with Dogs 24/7. It's Kipp Adams, also of Dogs 24/7. And a little different intro because we're happy. We're celebrating Braves win the World Series. We're so excited, man. If you follow me on Twitter, it's basically all I tweet about. I'm terrible at tweeting about for my job, but I love tweeting about the Braves. Kipp and I messaged throughout every game. We had given up in the first last night whenever things got squirrely. I'm weak. I'm a weak man when it comes to the Braves. And if you believe in curses, don't believe in this one anymore because it's broken. And I don't really have much of a voice. And Kipp, my cable went out last night. My cable
my
went out.
goodness.
Freddie Freeman doubles. He's standing at second, like taking his batting gloves off, and it freezes. And then I hear got an 18-year-old we're legal guardians, not necessarily adopted, but he's been with us for about over 2 years now. And I hear in his room, he's playing NBA 2K, and I hear him go, "Man!" And I was like, oh, then this is all down because he had a game cut off right in the middle. And so I had to hit the road. I went to downtown Athens. I'm sure we're going to get to this later because I've already seen the mailbag questions, so I get a chance to talk about it more then. Went to downtown Athens, and there was no parking, so I ended up having to watch it at a friend's house that so kindly took me in. Wow, just incredible. And Kipp, I know you had a lot of fun with it too, man.
Oh, it's still kind of, I'm in that euphoria right now. I'm kind of in this fog. Like, did that really just happen? And as adults, I mean, I was 14 when they won that last World Series, so it's just a different experience, and it's just incredible to watch everything come together. And I just want to apologize to Max Fried for ever doubting you. When you got that foot stepped on and you took it to another level, you reached a realm that very few pro athletes have ever reached, and you locked in. You found another gear, and that's really what it's all about. As far as the redemption stories, just the resilience, in sports, and the group of guys that everyone had kind of counted out. We watched them playing 500 baseball in August. We also watched them make all those moves at the trade deadline. We were pretty happy about it. I mean, how could we have known that we basically saw, moves that got NLCS, MVP, World Series MVP, Division Series. There were guys that came through at each stop along the way, but it was definitely a special moment to see Brian Snitker and Freddie Freeman, get that championship that they've been working so hard for. Guys that've been in this organization for a long time, and that's what it is. I mean, the city of Atlanta now, we get to have this parade on Friday, and this is it. I mean, we watched every single game, just talking about how things were going to go poorly in every pitch. Jake and I, that was just that mentality we kind of had because we've already seen just every single possible negative thing happen. And so you see Max get stepped on, fall awkwardly, get the guy out once again, no replay. It was maddening. And then from that moment on, the game was over. The Astros had no chance. He shut them down. Did not a single walk in that game. That was incredible that no Astros walked in that game. And obviously we came through with more home runs and more runs than we really needed. But the fact that we're able to kind of enjoy that in the 6th and 7th and kind of just lock in and go, this is going to happen, even though we weren't telling each other it was going to happen, because that's how baseball works. You don't want to mention it, but we were all able to enjoy that. And now we get to, I guess, talk about some Georgia football.
Yeah. And I'll say this, well, pardon shot on that. I hate to make it sound like I'm trying to get the last word here, but Max Fried went from Max Fried to Mad Max, and you can call it what you want. He put the Astros in a Thunderdome, put them on a Fury Road, whatever you want to say. He kind of took them to town after that. 98 in that first inning. It's so fun to watch, and tell you what, man, I don't care who you root for. Obviously, most of the people, almost everybody listens to this show is Georgia fan. Hope you get to experience the team you love probably more than anything in the world. experience a championship, because that I almost cursed. That's fun. That stuff is fun. And Georgia on the night that the Braves win the World Series, the College Football Playoff Committee does the very unsurprising thing and puts Georgia as number 1 in the country. Bulldogs, I guess you would consider, if you look at this from an All-American type standpoint and how those are done, this is a consensus number 1 football team right now. Number 1 in the AP, number 1 in the coaches, and number 1 in the College Football Playoff selection show. Not selection show, but the ranking show, the initial ranking show. And Georgia's going to be there as long as it keeps winning. And it has Missouri coming up on Saturday. And Kipp, before we jump into a break and grab these mailbag questions, what's your Wednesday lean on Missouri, as Georgia is a 39-point favorite?
I think that Georgia will score as many points on Saturday as Georgia would like to score. That's my early lean right now. It just does not look like there's going to be a lot of resistance in Georgia's way. So I think, whatever you want to try, or whatever, kinks you want to iron out offensively for Georgia, this might be kind of the weekend to start to get that going. But at the same time, if Kirby Smart wants to get this thing over with quickly, then, that's his prerogative as well, as far as just trying to stay healthy and get what you need to get done. We've seen earlier this year that when he knows they got the other team beat, that, he's going to run the offense that allows him to get off the field as quickly as possible and try to just minimize the potential for injuries. Once you've won, nothing else, I guess, really matters in his mind. And it's worked so far. Whether that's what everybody wants to see, again, we'll see what happens on Saturday, but it just seems like Missouri is not set up well to stop Georgia in really any facet, whether it's run, pass, any aspect of what Georgia wants to do offensively, especially at the line of scrimmage.
We'll probably dig into this tomorrow, Kipp, when we talk a lot more specifically about our predictions for the game. But I see a lot of people talking about how poor Missouri's run defense is, and it's awful. It's bad. But I don't necessarily think Georgia's going to come out and run the football 50 times. It might, because of the game might get out of hand and they might run it for the entire fourth quarter. But I don't necessarily know that that's the way this one's going to go as far as the game flow and everything, simply because if Missouri's going to try to load up and stack the box and stop Georgia's run game, Georgia's going to throw it over the top of them, because Missouri's not very good there either. This is one of those games when you look at certain point spreads like 14, 17, 21, even 24-25, I think those point spreads fall in the great teams, good teams win, great teams cover. 39 points is not that, because 39 points is oftentimes, does your coach really want to do it? And I'm not saying it's even on his mind, but do you want to run the offense with 5 minutes left to go in the third quarter? Because I think that's the decision Georgia's going to have to make. Do you want to run the offense into the fourth quarter? That's another decision Georgia's going to have to make. Will it pop a few big runs late in the game? That's another one. Georgia's a lot better than Missouri. Georgia can go out there and win 35-7 or 49-14 or whatever, and it's not going to change my mind as to whether or not Georgia's elite. Because I think if Georgia wants to win by 39, Georgia will win by 39. And, obviously this one being at home, being a noon game, we'll see how it kind of starts. But, I do think Georgia's going to end up covering here, simply because I don't think Missouri can stop them. And I think this is going to be kind of a nasty defensive game for Missouri, a team that really wants to run the ball. They're going to do some things differently than what Georgia's seen this year with outside zone and kind of stretch Georgia out a little bit. But this is one of those games, one of the rare conference games where you want to get out of the game healthy and you want to get some guys a chance to play. And I think Georgia will have a chance to definitely do the latter and hopefully do the former. Let's take a break here real quick. We're going to get a mailbag on the other side. All right, L. John 70. I'm going to take this one, Kipp. Do you believe the play calling with JT in the game is much different than Stetson? I think Stetson could possibly make the same throws if given more opportunity. I really like the way you put this question because I don't disagree. I don't necessarily know that arm talent is the differentiator between these two guys. I think it's field vision. I think it's the ability to see and go through progressions and read the entire football field. I think Stetson's a little bit limited in that regard. I don't think JT is. I do think arm strength and their ability to push the ball downfield is very similar. I think sometimes Stetson struggles a little bit with knowing how to layer the throw in there. Whether are you okay? You're gonna hang it up there. You're gonna drive it in there. I think sometimes that might be a little bit of an issue, but I do believe the play calling has been different, and there's no better evidence than the fact that I said this on another show on yesterday's show. JT Daniels has missed 5 games this year. He has attempted 30 fewer passes than Stetson Bennett. That tells you a lot about what you need to know. Not only that, 7 starts for JT, 4 games of 30 or more passes, 8, 9 starts for Stetson. I always have a hard time keeping up with those. Only 1 game where he's attempted more than 30 passes, and that was against Alabama. So I do think the play calling is very different between them, but I don't necessarily it comes down to the ability to make throws as much as it does the ability to see the entire field, to read the entire field, and make the decision to use the entire field. But I think we've seen both guys create explosive plays for the offense, and both guys make throws in the tight windows, and so that's kind of the way I look at it. Hooper Dog from the Dogs 24/7 message board, not Hooper Dog. The H is not cut off this time. If you were UGA, Kipp, who would you push for Heisman, Davis or Dean? Would Dean have a better shot?
Well, for one, we know that neither of those players have a legitimate shot. I would say that, again, just knowing the history of this award and knowing that statistically, even if Kenneth Walker at Michigan State is the front runner, he might not even have, a great shot just because of, quarterback play and how much of a focal point that's been in the Heisman race. But defensive players, that's an uphill battle just to get to New York. But if you're looking at Georgia and you're looking at kind of the face of this defense, it still has kind of been Jordan Davis getting a lot of the limelight, but Nakobe Dean, as far as just the plays that you can see, the plays that most fans are going to notice. I mean, Nakobe Dean obviously made a big impact in that last game over Florida. And if he continues to make those kind of plays, he's definitely going to get a lot more, national discussion and fanfare as well. So if you want to talk about Georgia's defense, and that's really going to be kind of that push as far as if somebody gets, the Heisman invite, it's going to be the team stats first, and then, just the impact that player has in the defense. And Nakobe might be a guy that kind of stuffs the stat sheet a lot more than Jordan Davis. So, I kind of do like his chances in that aspect. But I mean, talking to anyone, they're going to tell you that it's pretty obvious when Jordan Davis is on the field, the impact he has just in the offense's ability to move the football, whether that's, getting pressure on the quarterback, whether that's stuff in the run, and also, again, obviously taking on double teams and allowing the guy behind him, Nakobe Dean, to make all those plays. So that's a really good question. I think as far as awards go, I think Nakobe Dean's probably going to be the guy that has more national fanfare, whether that's the Butkus Award, whether that's, again, getting some Heisman love, the Bednarik, whatever award he's in the mix for. I think his stats are going to give him a better chance than Jordan Davis. Jordan's just kind of been that face of the Georgia defense so far this season. Neither of them are probably going to be going to New York for the Heisman unless, they're really playing a lot of football the rest of the year. And, at this point, given the schedule, they're probably not going to be playing a lot of snaps, in the third and fourth quarter if Georgia's playing the way that it should be against these opponents. So I don't know. We may be seeing the peak as far as where they are Nakobe, you know, in the stats for linebackers, that might actually be something that keeps them, you know, maybe from getting the buckets, which would, you know, probably be a shame. It really kind of begs the question, you know, if you're making an impact and getting off the field, isn't that the whole point of the defense, rather than stuffing stats and having, you know, to make more tackles for prolonged drives? Georgia's defense is maybe too good for its own good in the awards situation, but I don't think any of those players or Kirby Smart's really worried about that right now.
Not at all. And I'll say this, just a super quick chime in here. There's all the data in the world to support Georgia on the recruiting trail. Not that they're having trouble recruiting either position. With linebacker, defensive line, if you want to push somebody, neither guy's going to win it, but which one would it help Georgia more with if they made it to New York? Jordan Davis. Because then you want to talk about a pitch. That's right there with, you know, a bunch of first rounders is, hey, we got a defensive lineman to you know, what is it? Where do they do it? The Downtown Athletic Club, I guess it is, in New York. But yeah, you got a guy. So, yeah. I almost said Radio City Music Hall, but that was the NFL draft, I think, back in the day. That was where it was at regularly. But yeah, get a defensive lineman to New York for the Heisman, and you recruit like Georgia does. Again, not that they're having any trouble with it. We just had a podcast a few days ago about adding 2 elite defensive linemen. So, but you know, another recruiting tool there wouldn't hurt. But yeah, both guys, neither guy's going to win it. Super long shot for either guy to make it. If anybody's going to, it's going to be Jordan Davis because he's got some Heisman traction with some national voices now. And because it's almost like the cool thing. It's almost like, oh yeah, there's no clear Heisman front runner. Let's put this guy in there that impacts things but doesn't put up big stats. But everybody knows he's a beast.
People like being different, man. If you have a different opinion, it gets you the views. And then also you see those mock draft articles and you're like, why are we seeing those in October, November? I don't think, I don't think Kirby Smart, publicly he would hate just bringing that up. But as far as his support staff, I'm pretty sure all those mock drafts get sent out and sent to all the recruits, letting them know that Jordan Davis coming back for his senior year, how big that was and how he could be a first rounder right now. So just, you know, think about that again when you see the mock draft and you're wondering why they're out this early and them not meeting anything. That's still some positive recruiting pitches for Georgia right now. Like you said, they're not really struggling in recruiting right now. I can't think of a program with more recruiting equity than what Kirby Smart and his staff have right now.
Yep, and they're definitely using the ones that help them as far as those mock drafts go. King, Georgia, do you think Zamir White should get more carries, like 20 a game? I don't know about 20 a game, but yes, he needs to get more carries. And the reason I say this is because, you know, it's a constant debate on the Dogs 24/7 Junkyard, and King Georgia is one of those guys. Hooper Dog is one of those guys. L. Johns is one of those guys. Who's Georgia's best running back? And, you know, all 4 guys get mentioned: Kendall Milton, Kenny McIntosh, Zamir White, and James Cook. I'm of the opinion I think Zamir White is Georgia's best back. And I think Zamir White ends up kind of losing out a little bit on production and putting up huge numbers because Georgia is not playing full football games in terms of, you know, they're just getting big leads, and he's running it. If he does run the ball in the fourth quarter, he's running against stacked boxes. And oftentimes he doesn't run the ball in the fourth quarter, and he doesn't get a chance to run against the defense he helped wear down. He doesn't get a chance to pop the 42-yard run that he popped against Florida last week. So I think all of that is a reason why you don't see Zamir White putting up these massive numbers. And listen, Nick Chubb and Sony Michel put up those massive numbers without some of that too. Georgia blew a lot of teams out in 2017. But those guys were doing it with, you know, super long touchdown runs early in games, and teams were stacking the box against Georgia, and Jim Chaney did a fantastic job of scheming against that. And, you know, teams were basically killing themselves against Georgia in 2017 because they had so many men near the line of scrimmage that once you broke through the first wave, good luck chasing these dudes down. They were hard enough to tackle 2-on-1 in the box, and then you leave them 1-on-1 with the safety, game over. Big run after big run after big run. Teams are playing Georgia a little bit differently now, and sometimes it's tougher to be super explosive in the run game when teams have to respect your pass because you've got a couple of safeties at the third level that you've got to beat out, or maybe a cornerback. You've got a group of linebackers that are honoring the pass at the second level. That factor is in there. But to answer the overall question, yeah, I think he needs more carries a game. I think he's a guy that you need to get up to around 15 to 16. And when it's necessary, when you need it, workhorse him, because he takes care of the football. And that's something we've seen other guys not do as great a job of. Kendall Milton had a fumble earlier this year. I think he was down. Replay didn't overturn it. Replay did overturn Kenny McIntosh, who did fumble against Florida. James Cook's done a good job taking care of it, but you're talking about a kind of a limited number of carries and a higher volume of touches in space that kind of helps you maybe get out of the fray and not have to worry about getting stripped as much. So that was that's kind of the way I look at it. I think Zamir White is Georgia's best back and needs to touch the football somewhere, above north of 15 times a game, especially when games are within reach there in the fourth quarter. All right, Kipp, not last one from our Dogs 24/7 folks. McDonough Dog 16. When do you think all of the above turn the corner? Okay, sorry, I read that as return. Turn the
Injury
corner
update.
into being able to use them without any limits. Jermaine Burton, Arian Smith, Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint, Justin Robinson. I'll add this, Kipp, before you get started. Justin Robinson didn't even make the trip to Jacksonville. So, don't even know when he's going to be back. He's dealing with a hamstring. Those things are tricky. But Jermaine Burton, Arian Smith, Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint, when do you think those guys will be unlimited?
Yeah, I mean, it's progress. I mean, they're getting closer and closer each week. It seems like, it's moving in a good direction right now. I think you just look at, the last game. I think really, really impressed by the wide receiver group they were able to put out there. But I mean, Jermaine Burton, Arian Smith got in on some plays. Jermaine Burton, he seems to be close to where he was before. I was really, really impressed with what I saw out of those guys. But one guy that I'm really looking forward to, it does seem like, we might be able to see Dominic Blaylock here, pretty soon. That's a guy that, continues to battle that hamstring injury. But Jermaine Burton's the guy that we thought would be the most complete receiver this year. And he's getting some snaps out there, but it seems like, they are sticking with the guys that are, have kind of played a lot more football so far and kind of focusing on those. Stetson's honed in on the guys that he trusts right now, but that when they need guys like Jermaine Burton and Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint, that those are guys that he can also trust. It's just a matter of, again, we talk about it at the quarterback position. You can be cleared to play and you can be considered 100%, but you kind of have to hit the reset button. It's basically like you're going back to preseason. And, these guys are having to work their way back in. It's basically like August all over again for these guys when you go through some of these injuries. So I think that's the practice during the week is really, really just going to be important for these guys. And we talk about, the offense, how is it running with JT versus Stetson? These guys still have yet to really see all of their receivers on the field at one time. So, and that could be affecting the playbook a little bit. And, you got different plays that kind of take advantage of each guy's skill set. And so I think that if you're close to getting Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint out there, if you're close to getting Burton out there at 100%, and those guys are capable of explosive plays and they're capable of taking advantage of breakdowns in the secondary. So, I think it's encouraging that it seems like they're making progress, but it's during the week and it's that parts of practice that, we really don't have access to really know how close they are to kind of really being out there. So, each Saturday kind of gives us a little bit of a hint of where things stand. And as of right now, it's still kind of the status quo. It's frustrating for fans because they want to see 450 yards passing each game. But I think Todd Monken and that coaching staff, they know who they have going out there, and they kind of know how to maximize the guys they have. I think they've done a pretty good job of of having a very efficient offense out there. And even though it didn't really happen in the Florida game, they've done a pretty good job as far as time of possession and being able to allow that defense that has all those, the depth that Kirby Smart is so happy about and saying we might not see again in a long time. They're able to keep those guys rested and fresh, for when teams may have longer drives that they have to really buckle down on. So, getting those guys back in the next 3 or 4 games is probably the key right now to Georgia being able to field the offense that everyone's been looking for. So I think that's a good question, and one that we'll just continue to watch and see how they look on Saturday.
And another point I want to make here, we don't really know how limited they are in general anyway, because they missed some time, and these other guys like Kearis Jackson and Lab McConkey and A.D. Mitchell, they kind of grew and developed during that time where these other guys didn't. So part of it may be putting them on a pitch count. Part of it may be because haven't earned the reps yet, and these other guys are kind of just a little bit better. But I do believe if you were looking at a playoff game or the SEC championship game and Georgia needed Jermaine Burton to play 30, 40 snaps, he'd play 30, 40 snaps. Same
all
for Marcus
Rosemy,
Jack Saint, same for Arian Smith. I think all 3 of those guys would play a lot of snaps for Georgia if they were needed right now. But right now I really do believe they're playing a little bit of catch up on McConkey and Mitchell and Kearis Jackson. Last one, Kipp, from our Dogs 24/7 crew. Real quick here, I'm not going to spend too much time on it. How did you experience the Braves World Series win? Explain my story. Cable went out, went downtown, got a text from Palmer Toms, my former intern, shot me a text, and he said, "Hey, is your cable still out?" And I was like, "Yes, trying to watch it downtown." He said, "Come watch it in my house if you want to." Made a beeline straight there. Ain't trying to get no COVID from college kids. So I went straight there. I don't want any of that college COVID.
It's the worst kind.
Went to Palmer's house and watched it there. Caught like the last 3.5 innings. It was a lot of fun. Kipp, how'd you experience it?
In slow motion. Every single pitch was a game within itself. The game really slowed down there toward the end. Obviously, with the Braves kind of having what we now know was a clearly insurmountable lead in that game, but we wanted 5 more runs every inning. We were telling each other how many runs we needed each inning to feel better about it.
Every base hit felt like a 2-run homer.
Yep, and every single pitch that was a ball, I was like, all right, we got to get somebody up in the bullpen. Max is losing it. I mean, the kid's hitting 98, and then he goes, he hasn't even hit that before, and then he's hitting 90, 91. So I'm freaking out because he's losing his velocity. Everything was kind of magnified. I sent one semi-positive text to our coworker Tim Watts, and he gave me the business for texting him before the game was over, and so I made sure to not send another one. And so he reminded me that baseball is a game of rules, and I had broke one of the cardinal ones. And so I experienced, what all of us did, but it's just so weird. Like I said, the fact that I was 14 the last time this happened, just to age myself there. It's just a very different experience. Obviously with social media, I don't think the amount of content that I've consumed in the last 12 hours is probably more than I could mentally handle in a month. It's insane how much content that, we get on social media. Every single tweet, we're trying to devour as much as we can now that we've gotten to the other side, and we're, the world champs. So you can't send me enough things to look at now. And so that content consumption aspect of it, my brain is really, really hurting right now, because I stayed up to a ridiculous time trying to consume it all to make sure I didn't miss anything, talking about any aspect of that game. It was just an incredible experience. And Brian Snicker, what they did, how they handled that bullpen and how they handled the outfielders. Every single movie made, we were breaking down and trying to criticize, but he got it done. And so now we have the whole offseason to think about who we're going to re-sign and all the potential mistakes we might make in trying to build this team for next season. But it was slow motion for me, and a lot of text sent out, and maybe a little bit of emotion in the living room last night.
Yeah, I got a little emotional today watching that Buster Olney improbable all for Hank type deal. That was pretty cool. All right, Craig Lawson, YouTube commenter. Appreciate your question here. Do you think Georgia football will reach a point under Kirby where nobody feels the need to question or defend personnel choices at quarterback? Doesn't seem to be a consistent issue to other top programs. Now, all right, I feel like a question kind of crosses itself up a little bit here. Consistently, probably, yeah, I think so. I mean, will it get to a point where the quarterback decision isn't consistently questioned? Sure. I think that's a thing that every program can achieve. But will it get to a point where people just don't do it? No, it won't, because Lincoln Riley, all right, Lincoln Riley put 2 number 1 quarterbacks, 2 Heisman Trophy winners in a row, another guy into the second round, had fans yelling from the stands for him to replace the quarterback he had in the game this year. All right, so that happened to him. Nick Saban, the whole Tua Jalen Hurts thing, that wasn't 10 years ago, folks. It was within the last 5, and that was a question. It was also a question as whether or not, hey, are you really going to start Mac Jones over Bryce Young? Now, Mac Jones quieted that pretty quickly. But I think one of the things you have to consider here is that sometimes there's a lot that we just don't know. No, I'm wrong. All the time, there's a lot we don't know. Okay. So I think, your decisions as a coach are going to be questioned. Kipp just brought up Brian Snicker, and the dude did everything right pretty much in the World Series. I questioned every single thing he did as a fan. I know you guys are going to do that with coaches. We had somebody asking about Zamir White a minute ago. There are people who question year in and year out, why does Georgia rotate so much at running back? There are people who question year in and year out, why does Georgia rotate so much at receiver? Nobody has a chance to put up numbers. That kind of stuff is going to get questioned. And the quarterback thing the scream seems so loud because it is quarterback. But I would say this, if Stetson Bennett is Georgia's starter for the rest of this season, and I think that's possible, I think JT Daniels is better. There is a reason. And it's not because Kirby Smart wants to play ball control, because he said the other day, ball control means scoring points. Ball control means Kirby Smart is a defensive head coach. Kirby Smart is fixated, okay, on making a team one-dimensional. You know how you make a team one-dimensional better than any other way? You score points on them. You make them play catch-up, and you make them chase points. You put them in a rut, and you make them have to operate from that rut. And Kirby Smart wants to score points. He wants to be explosive on offense. Kirby Smart's not married to this familiarity. Listen, I don't know if the guy can win a championship or not, okay? And I'm not sitting here saying I think he's a great college football coach. I think there are guys that are better. But I do kind of crack up at this kind of stubborn way of thinking that people think he's stubborn and just wants to play who he's familiar with, or he's loyal to seniors or loyal to this. I mean, he named JT Daniels the starter at the beginning of the season. He took him to SEC Media Days. When JT Daniels is performing and preparing like Georgia's best quarterback, whether it's because of injury or mechanics or mentally or whatever it is, whenever he's there, he's going to be the starting quarterback. But until then, he's not. And we have no choice but to trust the guys who see it, pour over the film, and have the expertise. But B, you should, because they're more qualified to make that decision, and that doesn't mean they're right all the time. All right, next question. All right, here we go. Chase Barbie, Kipp. So did JT and Stetson come back next year?
I would say that the chances of both of them coming back to Georgia are not high. If let's say Stetson does start the rest of the season, he's coming back next year. If JT comes back and plays enough, to have enough video for the draft, he's probably going to go do that. If JT is not starting, then he's probably going to evaluate his options there as well. I think that the chances of JT being on the team next year, it's a very small window of circumstances that would have to play out for JT to come back next year. I think it's really the situation where, he evaluates the fact that he hasn't put enough film out there, but still feels this is the best situation for him to potentially put, to get film out there for NFL scouts next year, if that's still a goal of his. And I would imagine it is. Otherwise, I think that film or no film, I think that, knowing that he's eligible to go out there and he's performed fairly well in the games he's played at Georgia, in the end, he might think, I'm going to roll the dice and see what happens in that aspect. But it's just a very, very specific situation where, one, JT comes back, but definitely, JT comes back if Stetson Bennett is still considered the starting quarterback for Georgia.
I agree with that. And there's a question in here that I want to hit real quick from Rick Sanchez that I see. He says, so why does he want to run a 2-quarterback system? Man, he does not want to run a 2-quarterback system. He does want every team. Listen, you got to think put yourself in Kirby Smart's shoes. As a defensive coordinator for 9 years, a head coach now for 6, don't you think over the years that he's kind of, based on his actions, he's kind of expressed how much it meant to him as a defensive coordinator when he had to prepare for 2 quarterbacks? I think that is something that he wants other teams to have to do on a consistent basis. There's no desire on Georgia's part to run a 2-quarterback system. They want a guy to take the reins, to be the guy, and to move on with. But right now they're not doing that. They're playing just Stetson Bennett, and we'll see if JT Daniels can overtake him and what it takes for JT Daniels to overtake him. Is he healthy? Is he right mechanically? Is he right mentally? Is he into it? All of this stuff. I think that's all stuff you have to kind of consider. All right, college football playoff UGA Nihilist edition. Nihilist makes me think of Big Lebowski. All right, Ohio State, Oregon, and Oklahoma went out. All 3 conference champs. OU undefeated. Bama beats Georgia in Atlanta. Is UGA out? It's a good question. It's a really good question.
Depends on the game.
Based on how that game goes, based on how Oklahoma wins out, based on how Oregon wins out. Again, that's super, super tough to answer that one because there's just so many games to be played. I think Georgia would have a chance to be in, and that's about as far as I could go. What would you say?
Yeah,
Kipp?
I think Georgia's, their body of work is still very strong and arguably would still be stronger in a close loss to Alabama than Oregon or Oklahoma. I think I was actually very surprised, with Oregon being number 3. That does bode well for their chances. But for Oklahoma, I just don't see it. I don't see the rest of their schedule and who they have to play. I don't see them building a strong enough resume. As long as that game is close in Atlanta, Georgia should still be in the college football playoff just because, again, the way the defense is played, they've been efficient on offense. If we're talking about a 21-17 loss, then I think Georgia's still done enough to get in. But at the same time, it does kind of put it up in the hands of this committee, and that's definitely not where Kirby Smart wants to be. You win that game, you don't have to worry about it, and that's the whole goal. But to answer your question, I think Georgia gets in as long as that's not a rough loss. If it's single digits, they lost, then I think that they still would get in. But again, that's still opinion based, and that would be up for debate and something that would probably be discussed all night. But if they lose by double digits, that situation's probably the worst case scenario.
Yeah, and if you're Kirby Smart, you want to be 13-0 as you're waiting for that college football selection show, and then you want to have your pick of Miami or Dallas. I mean, I don't think you explicitly get to pick, but you get to tell what you prefer, and you almost always get a chance to pick what you prefer. And I think pretty much if anything other than Georgia being matched up with Oklahoma, they're gonna choose Dallas because of the lack of distractions in Dallas over Miami. If Georgia were to get matched up with Oklahoma in the first round, let's say they're 13-0, Oklahoma's the 4 seed, Georgia's the number 1 seed, they're probably going to pick Miami because they don't want to play basically, as close to Oklahoma's backyard as you can get in the college football playoff. Rick Sanchez, I want to hit you up one more time. We're having a private conversation here on this live YouTube show. He did say he wanted to play 2 quarterbacks. That's lip service. Kirby Smart also says guys are day-to-day when they're going to miss an entire year. He just wants teams to have to prepare for both quarterbacks. In no way does he want to run a 2-quarterback system. Kipp, let's get out of here and go read some more Braves stuff and talk some more to our families and friends about the Braves. And we'll be back with you tomorrow to talk more dogs and make our predictions for this episode of the Junkyard Dawgcast. I'm Jake Rowe with Dogs 24/7. He's Kipp Adams from the same place. Go Braves and take it easy.